tell me it's over now. Does a hate inside of me like some kind of master? I try to save you but I can't find the answer. I'm holding on to you, I'll never let go. I need you with me as I enter the shadows.
Since Christmas has passed and all that's left is my Lonely Vibes video and New Year's Eve, waiting for this video for the New Year isn't really my top priorities, so this is why I'm uploading my comparison video of Hologram Jam and The Walking Dead now, with these two episodes are supposed to take us back to the classic days of the Loud House when it comes to the seasons 1 through 3 episodes, but at the same time, it only showed to me that they don't understand how those episodes worked back at the day. And with this show officially reaching 10 years old once we get into May of next year, honestly, The Walking Dead is the closest to make a classic Loud Test episode right, while Hologram Jam doesn't. I did plan on just only reviewing Hologram Jam, but after sitting through The Walking Dead, even if old fans won't enjoy that episode, I can guarantee you that if they have to pick either that or Hologram Jam, they would definitely pick The Walking Dead. I'm just saying that with these two episodes, despite having less similarities, but at the same time it resembles the classic theme of the earlier years of the Loud House, they really need to do more research, which is something that they don't do, unfortunately, but at the very least they managed to make one of these episodes work rather than the other. In Hologram Jam, Lincoln has been told to clean his room before doing anything of his hobbies, so physically video games, and when he came across a hologram version of Lisa, it gave him an idea by signing a contract. And he has holograms of himself cleaning when in reality the hologram isn't cleaning whatsoever, and it's mainly there just to distract the other characters, so physically his parents. In The Walking Dead, Lincoln really wants Lori's old mattress after she ordered a new mattress, but Lori told Lincoln that Lenny is gonna be getting her mattress since that she is the next in line, which is the rule of the Loud's line of succession. This gave Lincoln an idea in order to do favors for his sisters in order to get the mattress for himself. And upon heading to Lynn, Lincoln found sticky notes which are amendments which he found a way in order to get Lori's mattress without Lynn getting it. And since that Lynn really wants the mattress just as much as he does, I would feel bad for Lynn much more in Hologram Jam, but at the same time, this episode at least manages to make me feel bad for her. And at the same time, it still rewards Lincoln fairly. So, if it was no surprise, this is still Cartoon Crisis 3 material, specifically Hologram Jam, for how Lincoln is written. He's lazy, he only focuses on his video games, and the lesson of this episode is that while chores is dreadful, it's still important when it comes to doing them in order to stay out of trouble. But at the same time, since that they decide to make Lincoln the main character again, and just make the other characters difficult to side with, which I'm gonna get to later, this is a demonstration of why that in The Walking Dead showcases Lincoln as best. I would feel bad for Lincoln for what he's been through when it comes to the favors from Lola and Lynn, especially since that Lynn was a lot more complicated in order to get the mattress, but at the same time, since that they involve taxes for Lincoln in order to get the mattress, honestly, these aren't as torturous as some fans, specifically toxic Lincoln fans, make out to be. Mainly of the fact that The Walking Dead has nearly all the sisters play a role in the story, unlike Hologram Jam, which, for me personally, the sisters are becoming afterthoughts. As in, mainly not doing much in the story, while Lincoln just carries the entire episode on his own, and it may be debatable that he is carrying this episode on his own, the walking bed. At the same time, if the other characters contribute more than just doing bits here and there, with them along with the parents witnessing the holograms of Lincoln, while the hologram Lincoln says the same thing over and over again, and they just don't pick up the pieces. Really, it's difficult for the parents to not understand that technology is definitely from Lisa. Despite Lincoln signing a contract to not get Lisa into trouble, it doesn't really change the fact that there was no other way that Lincoln would be able to find a device that makes holograms out of himself without Lisa. And truth be told, this sums up onto why people hate this episode. Granted, it's mainly because of Lincoln's character, but at the same time, when I mention toxic fans, either if it's from Lincoln or other characters, I'm only assuming that if they didn't watch the entire episode, it's probably on them, but after sitting through this episode from beginning to end, this episode fails at doing a classic Loud House episode. Now, Lincoln would still be in the position of cleaning up his room because the holograms won't do it, which is something that can't be used against his character in this episode. And the idea of doing chores during the weekend after a long week of school and homework, honestly, it's an important lesson. Unfortunately, with how this episode is executed, it just shows to me that they care little about the lesson itself and just wanted to focus on Lincoln being in the wrong by any means necessary, and at this point, the lesson really falls flat once he gets caught. In the walking bed, Lincoln did take advantage of Lynn in order to get the mattress for himself. And since that he actually did more in this episode compared to Hologram Jam, other than just him focusing on playing his game while being lazy, really, if you have the other characters have a factor in the story when it comes to Lincoln heading straight to Lynn, since that he'll be next in line after succeeding his goal, it made the Loud sisters look better in comparison than Hologram Jam. And when it comes to Naughty or Nice, they may contribute some when it comes to the battle, but since that these two episodes are grounded, or at least one of them is grounded, I can appreciate them a lot more here. If anything, I can easily see them fighting with each other may have been redundant, but at the same time, if it's done accurately, I'm not complaining about it. Yes, Lincoln is responsible for causing the conflicts in the walking bed due to the endement. But at the same time, since that they actually knew how to make this work in order to have the characters have a role in this episode much more better than Hologram Jam, then it really shows to me that they at least attempted to make a classic Loud House episode. There's even bonding moments of Lincoln and Luna and Lincoln and Lynn, and they managed to make those work since that they can easily have the sisters play a role in this episode. Lincoln's intentions isn't really accurate when it comes to bonding, since that he needs to get what he wants, but at the same time, if they actually knew how to make the characters somewhat important for Lincoln's goal, then I can easily appreciate this episode a lot more than Hologram Jam, which makes literally every single character aside from Lincoln mostly an afterthought, including Lynn Junior, whom lost her tone in a baseball game due to Lincoln's holograms. And considering that the entire purpose is just them to make wacky faces and references from other media, specifically Lynn Junior chasing Lincoln and Clyde as she won Sonic the Hedgehog style, this is one of the reasons why I don't enjoy these bits due to the terrible writing. even if I'm being too critical, it doesn't change the fact that with how poorly executed this episode is, and for how fast-paced this episode is, it's honestly difficult to process on those moments. And when the following moments ended up happening next, it just makes this episode having no structure whatsoever. And I can understand why people are complaining about the whole hologram thing on Twitter when this episode got leaked in early November. Not only that Lincoln was playing his video game in the bathtub, but he also had Lisa's device next to the sink, and the bubble from the tub causes it to malfunction. And since that, they had to make sure that Lincoln gets caught by any means necessary after this moment. After ditching Lynn, which, in all honesty, sums up a lot of how they're doing anything to make Lincoln really unlikable, Clyde gives him a bag that has rice that protects anything liquid, but then Lincoln tosses it, and apparently the zipper opened on its own, causing the Flippy to being dumped on the phone, and apparently they're not even trying to make Lincoln look bad at this point. When I first saw this, I was confused, especially looking through the comments, despite the fact that it's just mainly them just addressing of how bad the Loud House has gotten, but in context, this just shows to me that they're literally doing anything in order to make Lincoln in the wrong without giving them any positive traits. Granted, this is nowhere near as bad as his performance in Naughty or Nice, but at the same time, this just shows to me that they don't care about making this episode work as a classic Loud House episode if they're just doing all this just to make Lincoln look bad. And even with the punishment that he gets later isn't as severe, it doesn't change the fact that this should have stopped a long time ago. I really felt like that the reactions that they give towards the characters in Hologram Jam were not only forced, but also mainly for the sake of just showcasing of they can't be able to do anything with these characters because they have little ideas on doing different techniques and routes for them rather than just doing the same things repeatedly. And it's honestly sad that I actually see Lynn Junior's rage in The Walking Dead much more justified than Hologram Jam, because her game has never been brought up. Literally never been brought up. And it's honestly the only similarity that these two episodes have involving Lynn Junior Furious. The only difference is that the other episode had closure involving Lynn Junior while this didn't. Right after the baseball game, while Lynn Junior was with some of the sisters to confront Lincoln, she ends up eating, which is basically her way of victory, because her eating food is mainly her being victorious after winning the game that has been showcased in one of her episodes. So it just seems to me that if Lynn Junior's team lost the baseball game, then I'm pretty sure that she wouldn't feel this way. Or if she actually lost, then the writers are not even bothering to make it really integral when it comes to Lincoln's hologram crisis. Now, people will bring up that The Walking Dead has similarities of the Hand-Me-Down episode from Season 1, and while I understand that people will prefer that episode over this, for how that this episode was executed when it comes to Lincoln attempting to do some taxes, this episode isn't really that similar to that, since that Lincoln was using Lynn Junior's bike to his own advantage, and while he may have advantage in this episode, at the very least he's attempting to own it in order to make his plan work. It's just that when he shows the intimate to the other sisters, that's just when everything goes south. But it still manages to make it feel like a classic Loud House episode, even though it's not going to be one of the best episodes. I mean, it can't be one of the best episodes or underrated episodes of Season 9, but still, they at least attempted to make a classic Loud House episode work in comparison to Hologram Jam. Even though that I'm not really into the idea of Lincoln putting his sisters over him due to the later seasons, really making it difficult for me to adjust to that statement, the fact that Lincoln is willing to give his mattress to Lynn showcases that this is what a Loud Test episode should do when it comes to classic ways. Even though that I'm not a fan of the relationship of Lincoln and Lynn due to the bad overweighing the good, I can understand that scenes like this have the fans enjoying this sibling dynamic. I do prefer the other dynamics of siblings over this, but at the same time, I can see onto why people would still enjoy this dynamic. I can give this episode credit when it comes to giving Lynn some likability, since that she was still in the wrong for Lincoln putting her in this position. So it really makes sense onto why that she would be happy to have the mattress, since that she owns it, while Lincoln ends up getting her mattress. Mainly the fact that he was okay with it after it bounces him out of the window. Truth be told, the fact that that doesn't consider torturous when it comes to Lincoln torture sums up a lot that they actually manages to make this sibling dynamic right, just not 100% of the time. Before we get into the ending of Hologram Jam, let's go talk about Luann, who's another character that Lincoln is avoiding, not just his responsibilities. Luann is performing a comedy show in front of her family, specifically some of her siblings, and she really wants Lincoln to be attended, but the reason onto why Lincoln uses a hologram instead of himself is because Mr. Coconuts roasts him. From someone who doesn't like roasting people, especially when it comes to a talk show, Lincoln really had some right to avoid Luann's comedy show. Granted, what Luann was doing wasn't fully intentional, since that it's mostly for fun, but at the same time, it would still leave a bad taste or emotions towards characters like Lincoln. And since that this also had no ending to it, like the Lynn Junior baseball game, I can't feel sympathy towards her. If anything, the fact that this season only had one episode of Lincoln bonding with his sisters, and it ended up being Luann in Scene Stealer, while Luann spends the majority of the episode just trying to act in character, but at the same time, by any means, harming Lincoln and Clyde, well, her impulses are mostly theater. The relationship between Lincoln and Luann has becoming more weaker, to the point that they're supposed to be closer when it comes to their episodes, especially from Season 1 Funny Business. But just by looking at Luann in this show in the later seasons, she really isn't the same as she was when it comes to her best episodes from the earlier seasons. And just by seeing her here, well, the intention is to perform a comedy show. It's supposed to be a really important thing for her when it comes to getting respect from her siblings and family, but at the same time, when it comes to how she was written, especially in Scene Stealer, it's just difficult to feel sympathy towards her, even though that she really needs sympathy when it comes to her comedy show. Also, Loie literally came out of the shower and head straight to the Loud House after leaving Mr. Grouse's garage, which is her room, and really, she may be a victim when it comes to invading privacy when it comes to taking a shower, but at the same time, the fact that she barely does much in this episode, and she's only with the other characters to confront Lincoln, I'm supposed to get the impression that her walking out in the public eye with towels is supposed to be a glaring issue and mostly humorous, but the fact that they're just doing anything, and I mean anything, in order to put Lincoln in this position, all the while not understanding that the holograms were made by Lisa, even though that Lisa had Lincoln sign a contract in order to get her out of trouble. Really, there's no other way you can convince me that Lisa is left off the hook. You just can't. And since that we have finally reached to the ending of Hologram Jam, it's lazy. Like, really lazy. I'm saying this on the fact that with the characters not having any IQ when it comes to the holograms, but with people praising this episode a bit when it comes to Lincoln having a fair punishment rather than an extreme punishment, do you really think that this is worth it when it comes to the entire episode being poorly executed and literally having an ending that feels more rushed, that it doesn't even feel worthwhile? The lessons involving responsibilities is lazy, and with Lincoln saying sorry and people making fun of him saying sorry, other characters said sorry not only from this show, but also in the spin-off. And for me personally, the fact that there are no bringing ups on when it comes to the stuff that Lincoln caused when it comes to holograms invading Lori's shower, the baseball game, and there's no ending when it comes to Luann's comedy show, really, I still can't be able to take this family seriously. Like, this isn't as bad as Naughty or Nice, but at the same time, they really need to think a lot more in order to make this episode work when it comes to doing a classic Loud House episode, because this really feels like a failed classic Loud House episode in order to make Lincoln look bad by any means necessary. And for me personally, they're going to be making more and more to the point that there isn't going to be another episode where Lincoln is being portrayed in the white. I've been seeing so many episodes involving Lincoln being in the wrong unfairly, and yet at the same time, the last time where he was mostly in the white is musical chairs from season 6, and from season 6 where he was in the ultimate white was the taunting hour, which is becoming 4 years old. I'm bringing this up because when this clip came up when it comes to Lincoln being busted, the Lincoln fans, when it comes to those followers and subscribers, they call them true Lincoln fans, which it's one thing to get back at the toxic Lincoln fans, but I'm not those true Lincoln fans. Like, there's literally no such thing as true fans off of anything. Because it's one thing that you call out toxic fans for how they're just hammering in the toxicity and not being civilized, but at the same time, when it comes to true Lincoln Loud fans, they're also not civilized when it comes to people like me having a different opinion while also attempting to be civilized. And when I say attempting, nowhere near as toxic fans. This is one of the reasons why characters learning a lesson, becoming their character development, has becoming more dreadful to think about. While it is a shame that the characters don't learn, that doesn't automatically mean that I should follow the true fans of the franchise by following their opinion based off of those facts. Regardless of them being facts, that doesn't automatically mean that a show is enjoyable to people who don't agree to those facts. At this point, the whole lessons involving the characters have been so overrated to the point that it wouldn't even kill this show to have a different direction when it comes to the characters doing something different that doesn't involve them learning lessons. Because I know that there are some episodes in this show that has different themes that doesn't center around lessons. It actually makes it difficult for me to come back to this show thinking about those facts. Like, even though that my following Loud House video is still going to be shipping and romance when it comes to the despair of it, I am going to address onto why that in my toxic fans and haters video in the future is an indicator onto how it's difficult for me to come back to this show due to those facts alone. And it really makes the horrible episodes really feel like normal episodes in comparison to the regular episodes. My title of the video will change, unlike my romance and shipping video, since it's also going to include the critics of the show, since that they share the same opinions as toxic fans, which really makes it difficult for me to enjoy anything from this show, and hence the reason onto why toxic fans and haters are worse than anything going on in the Loud House fandom. Anyway, that's Hologram Jam and The Walking Dead, and with one episode failing at being a classic episode, the other manages to succeed, even if it's not by much. Even though that these two episodes haven't been released in the United States yet, I don't really qualify these episodes as spoilers. Well, maybe for The Walking Dead, but when it comes to Hologram Jam, I just spare you basically 11 minutes, to the point that you would rather sit through The Walking Dead over that episode, even if you may agree with my opinions or not. At least it felt like a Loud House episode that is meant to be a Loud House episode. Even though it's not something I would go back to, but at the very least, it made me see that this show can at least do a classic Loud House episode, even though it can't be able to do it 100% physically. Like, you can say all you want that the other episodes from seasons 1 through 3 are better than this, but since that I compared The Walking Dead to Hologram Jam, this really feels like the closest that we're ever going to have a classic Loud House episode done right, and pretty much not much afterwards, if you're including Lincoln as the main character. I'm giving Hologram Jam a 2 out of 10, while The Walking Dead gets a 6.75 out of 10. When it comes to the plans that I have for this show in 2026, other than the major projects, which is the shipping and romance video and the toxic fans video, I might be planning on reviewing some Loud House episodes. Not a lot, but just some. And since I have one planned out for my February schedule, it's mainly made before Naughty or Nice came out. Specifically a month before. So you're probably going to expect less reviews from this show and more on videos when it comes to my opinions on shipping, toxic fans, and whatnot. And I have plenty of Loud House content when it comes to doing sequels of Lincoln's Christmas Panic Attack. It's literally the plus that Naughty or Nice gave me, since I'm taking these stories more seriously than my previous Loud House stories, even if it could be for better or worse. But one thing's for sure, that me celebrating 10 years of the Loud House is gonna be low. I may do a community post about it, but when it comes to making the video, it'll be really unlikely. Especially uploading those video projects on that day when the Loud House turns 10 years old. But let's not worry about that now. I have one more video of 2025 to wrap up, and I'll see you guys on the 29th of December.